Hi, I'm Dan Membiela, writer-artist of Under God and Blue Bastard. You can find me on Blue Sky at danmembiela.bluesky.social. And you're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today by a returning guest. He has been on the show in the past from his amazing comic called Under God. He's joining us today with his brand new comic coming out called Vengeance Must Die. We're joined by the ever-talented Dan Membiela. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Kurt. Doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. Thank you for making your show, making space for me on the show, and I appreciate you and what you do for everyone.
Well, you're already on the show. You don't have to butter me up. But I appreciate the sentiment. I really do. No,
No problem.
I always love having you on the show because it's so amazing what you get to put together and what you've done in the past, from Band of Bards publishing Under God to now, of course, Vengeance Must Die, which I happen to look at the comics. So thank you so much for sending that to me. And it looks amazing. I'm jumping ahead of myself as I normally do because I'm so excited to talk to you about this amazing comic. Who are you and what are you bringing to Two Geeks Talking today?
I am Dan Membiela, a Cuban-American indie comics writer-artist of Under God and the short story El del Boniato in the Foreign Press Comics from the Kitchen anthology, as well as Good Agent on Amazon Kindle. And my new book, Vengeance Must Die, is available on Zoop starting April 17th. Vengeance Must Die is a 34-page horror period piece about the rewards of a life in service to vengeance. And it's also a last Count of Monte Cristo story.
So I'm curious, are there any Cuban horror stories that someone should actually look into, just to understand that culture that maybe we don't have access to?
Excellent question. And I know that there must be. I'm drawing a blank. I'm first generation Cuban American, and I don't really remember many ghost stories or. I mean, there were actual ghost stories of, my mom would say that at someone's house, like her feet would be moved in the middle of the night. But as far as like traditional Cuban horror stories, I know they must exist. Sadly, I apologize that I don't know any off the top of my head.
How does Vengeance Must Die differ from the original or adaptations and interpretations, and how did you make it your own style?
Vengeance Must Die definitely more than just serves as a last Count of Monte Cristo story. It's possible to look at it completely through that lens as a sequel to the Count of Monte Cristo. But what I wanted to do was have it be that and also have a broader appeal so that if you're very familiar with the Count of Monte Cristo, you may have some different takeaways, but if you are not at all familiar with the story, you will have all the information. You will have just as much story, just as much resolution and character development. Your perspective might just be different if you are more familiar with the story. The classic novel is a tale of a wronged man who takes the place of vengeance to punish the wicked. And once done, he announces that vengeance is served and there's a kind of happy ending. So what Vengeance Must Die looks at is what happens when the god of retribution says you're not done yet. You can't stop serving vengeance.
It's the last time you read The Count of Monte Cristo.
I've read it a few times. It's definitely been more than a decade since I read it the last time. Really a great novel. I mean, there are parts of it that are just completely bonkers. There's four main villains in the movie or people that he wants to make pay. One of them has something so horrific happen to his family. Essentially, even his son is killed, kind of indirectly by the Count. And then the Count kind of sees this and says, like, have I gone too far? Like, this kid's been killed. It's like kind of a crazy story. And then he's like, well, all right, vengeance is done. Let's not talk about this again. And then he goes on, literally sails off into the sunset with his new life. But Vengeance Must Die says, okay, well, it's a great piece of fiction. The world continues spinning. What happens afterwards? It takes a dark turn afterwards.
It's a heck of a time to become a mass murderer, and you suddenly decide to have a conscience at that particular point in time. It's like,
yeah, I mean, arguably you could say by today's standards, his body count is very low. But I mean, it's a pretty rough scene because even the guy's kid has been killed. It's a very very rough moment, and then he low key tortures a bunch of other people, and he definitely gets vengeance on them.
Sounds like an episode of Dexter that they never got to film. Me. Once readers pick up this book, especially after this Zoop campaign, what can they expect in terms of pacing and tone for Vengeance Must Die?
Like my other book, Under God, Vengeance Must Die is a one shot. So all the goodies are there in these 34 pages. I sent some friends copies to get pull quotes, and I got things back like whip tight pacing, which is exactly what I wanted. And I kind of picture it as each chapter in Vengeance Must Die, there's 6 chapters in the book, is kind of like a room in a haunted house. And I open up the doors and push you into one room, and then before you can recover from what you've seen, I've pushed you into the next room. And I do that all the way until I've pushed you out into the parking lot, and then you're just left there by yourself to reconcile everything that, that you've seen. Something different, though, is that there is one palette cleanser chapter. I wanted to do something like Jendi Tartakovsky does, the artist and animator, is such an incredible talent, but does so much storytelling and advancing the feel of the story with just settings. You get one break, you get to go into like an intermission between the horror rooms, and then you're back into then you're back into the horror.
Faster lines than a Disneyland ride, right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, while you're in the intermission room, that's when the group ahead of you is doing the ride, and then then you get to go in.
You could use that in your next interview if you want.
Yes.
It's a faster line than Disney. I think that'll get some laughs, actually.
Awesome.
You're the writer and creator. You're the artist.
Any part that you don't like about the book, I'm the person you have to talk to.
Customer support, I call you.
Yeah, IT. Yeah.
So then, since you are the creator of everything, you're the creator, writer, and artist of Vengeance Must Die, can you share any insights into the artistic style and design choices that you made for this comic?
Yes, with Vengeance Must Die, I stepped far outside my comfort zone and colored the whole book with gouache. Each inked page was printed and then hand painted, and then the 2 scans were merged digitally. I'm happy with how the painting came out, but I do have to admit that I was many times thought it's not too late to just go back and do this as a black and white book. You hear that a lot, that you should always be working outside of your comfort zone, but it's important to remember what that means is that you will be working in an uncomfortable zone. I'm happy with how it came out. I'm happy that I did it, but you really do need to power through when you're in those moments. And the campaign is going to have an add-on where the individual black and white inked pages and the hand painted pages are going to be available for purchase on the campaign page.
Those that don't know about gouache, gouache is one of the hardest mediums to use when it comes to painting. Even though it says it's watercolor, it is not watercolor. It is a pain in the butt.
It's its own whole opaque, also really is like acrylic and watercolor had a baby. So it's like, oh, I know how to do this one. Oh no, but do you know how to do that one? Oh well, but now you're doing the other one again. It's really something.
We got to talk about the gouache side of things because I remember dealing with it in art school, and that's the last time I touched it because it was so difficult because it's a matter of thin layers to try to get your different tones and shades. Talk about why you wanted to use this incredibly difficult medium for your comic.
I wanted to be able to get that kind of, you can really see the hand of the artist with gouache and with watercolor as well. But gouache lets you actually you can paint in a completely opaque style if you want. Though Vengeance Must Die is much more watercolory, there are parts where it's less so. So I just really like the way that there have been other comics that were painted in gouache. Of course, I believe that Dark Knight Returns was painted in gouache, that Elektra Lives Again was painted with gouache. Like I think John J. Muth paints with gouache. There's just a lot of great comics that were done that way. And then also it's just a very nice effect, the way that it's not so much you're seeing the brush strokes, but then just what the medium is doing on the page with the water. There's little bursts, little like flowering bursts of colors. In the final fight scene, there's a lot of the background is just this tone that has some of these bursts in it. I just was drawn to it. I've seen it used to very good effect. I was not very familiar with how to use it, and I learned a lot while doing it. I also learned a lot by having to redo whole parts of pages. Thank goodness that then you can just, digitally extract that part and put it over the other page. I definitely was far outside my comfort zone. Very glad, though I was so tempted many times to just say, I can just go back and ink these pages heavier and just make it a black and white book. I'm very happy that I did not do that because I think the book is much better for it.
I have mad respect for anyone that uses that medium only because I've seen it. Like those comic examples are great, but if you look at Scott Christian Salva's work, props to you because I love
Yeah.
the colors of this. Like
Oh, thank you.
this is the most beautiful like colors that I've seen. Especially, man, these oranges and reds and everything that you're using, it's just so vibrant and amazing. And
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to hear that. I was going through it at the time. I really was struggling with myself to not just say like, let's just this is easy to just do it black. I was like and plus it's already by the time I was coloring it, all 34 pages were already drawn in ink. And I was like, I could just go back and just add some more touches of black and be done. I was like, no, no. You got to do a whole another comic now in color. Yeah. Repaint the whole thing in color.
once you get the bug, it's kind of hard to let go, right?
Yeah, yeah. I felt then I think I'm glad I didn't, but it really wasn't an option. I would have felt like I failed myself. I was like, no, no, this is what you started out doing. You got to keep going. But it sucked many times.
Gotcha. What do you believe sets Vengeance Must Die apart from other comics with the revenge genre?
The Agent of Vengeance is such a popular trope, and not just in comics, but in all fiction. There have already been many stories that examine the difference between vengeance and justice. Vengeance Must Die is different. Here's the Agent of Vengeance. Even while he's on his trail to end vengeance, he's still enacting vengeance on the wicked as he goes. He's still being led by vengeance. And I wanted to take a look and see, like, what's the final reward for this person? What final piece will he know for all his hard work? We've heard a lot about what the wages of sin are. Spoiler alert, it's death. But what are the wages of vengeance? With what coin will Edmund be paid?
Is it in doubloons? Is doubloons the popular currency?
It's like, I think it's some sort of barter system, like chickens or something.
Yeah. So if I kill this person, can I get you to come and fix my lavatory? Is
Yeah.
that what it boils down to? Like,
The grass is real tall in my backyard.
can you use your scythe of death, to cut my front lawn? I have like 18 acres of pasture in the back that I need you to work on.
Get on the rider and
What do you hope readers will remember most about Vengeance Must Die after they finish the comic?
I hope people finish the story and say this is a messed up story. But seriously, I was lucky enough to see a few people read the story. There really is a twist in the ending, and I hope that it's that sense of loss and that surprise, something that I've already said, the Agent of Vengeance and how popular that character is. I think that kind of helps shield you from what's really going on in the story. I also think that some of my period dialogue is quite wry and funny, and I hope that people remember that also. The main characters are these no nonsense characters. They clearly feel themselves apart from the rest of humanity, and when they have to interact with humanity, they really don't have a lot of time for people.
Especially with how quick the book is as well, because they don't have time to
Yeah.
process what's happening because they're already dead.
You have to answer quickly. You better answer real quick because your chapter's ending in just a couple more pages.
It's like Fist of the North Star. You're already dead. Can you share any behind the scenes anecdotes or interesting tidbits that you came across about the creation process for this comic?
Yeah, so the Count of Monte Cristo is actually comes from an old comic pitch that I would shop around with my buddy John Kissy, who actually drew a few pages way back when. I came up with the idea and we worked on the pitch. It must have been the early 90s. And we actually got picked up by a publisher, and the publisher immediately went under. I originally read the Count of Monte Cristo in this is terrible to say, 1988. So that was just a few years away from reading the ending of The Dark Knight Returns and like 1 year from reading Batman Year One. In the novel, when Edmund is wrongly imprisoned, he suffers all these years in prison. He finally escapes. He's rewarded with all these riches, and he goes and he treats everyone who was good to his family while he was in prison well. And then he says, "And now farewell to kindness, humanity, and gratitude. Farewell to all the feelings that gladden the heart. I have submitted myself for providence in rewarding the good. May the God of vengeance now yield me his place to punish the wicked." And it hit my Batman frenzied brain like a lightning bolt. And I thought, here's a guy who's not just seeking vengeance, he's asked the god of vengeance to yield to him so that he can now be vengeance. And I thought, well, what happens? How does that work when you ask vengeance to take the wheel? When you're done with vengeance, can you just give it back to vengeance? And what if vengeance says, no, you're driving now, you're vengeance? In the original 90s pitch, it was really kind of like the further adventures of the Count of Monte Cristo. And it was very much like the agent of vengeance archetype and just gleeful vengeance, killing bad people, every story just covered in blood. Vengeance Must Die now is a different type of story where it says like, okay, well, that happened. It's almost like the 90s pitch happened, and now this is the last story afterwards. What's left of Edmund? What remains of a person like this? And in the 90s pitch, Edmund wore a bandolier of pouches, as was the fashion in the time in the 90s. I know it's popular, and Bob Kane said it a lot when the 80s Batman movie came out, that Zorro is the progenitor of Batman, but the Count of Monte Cristo has really been done a disservice being left off the family tree, because the riches, the training abroad, the disguises, the skills, I'm still amazed that there isn't some Elseworlds story, the Bat of Monte Cristo, because when you read that story, I know that Zorro has so many other similarities, but wow, the Count of Monte Cristo is really stacked with similarities and never gets even mentioned.
Is Zorro and the Count of Monte Cristo, I'm trying to think like decade-wise.
Count of Monte Cristo predates Zorro, yeah. Okay. Zorro was, the Curse of the Capistrano, I think, is 1918. Count of Monte Cristo is 1800. I may be incorrect because I may be remembering the timeline in the books and not the timeline of the writing. So in the fictional timeline, if we made a fictional, like the old Doc Savage books, that would say like Doc Savage was related to every other fictional character. Count of Monte Cristo comes before Zorro.
So then in what way does Vengeance Must Die challenge traditional notions of justice and revenge?
I think it comes back to the agent of vengeance trope that is so popular in fiction. We give this archetype free rein, so much gleeful maiming and killing in the moment because we know that they're on the side of vengeance. And isn't vengeance like the close cousin of justice? Some vengeance right now sounds good, but what comes later? Originally, the idea of a sequel to the Count of Monte Cristo, like I said, was a young man's idea steeped in blood and vengeance. A Vengeance Must Die then is really an older man's idea. Like, what becomes of the vengeance-seeking hero? What is left of them after their lifetime of vengeance? What world have they built around them?
What role does symbolism play in Vengeance Must Die, and can you provide any examples of its use throughout the comic?
Devotion and control are recurring references and images in Vengeance Must Die. One of the symbols of Nemesis, the Greek god of vengeance, is the bridle. Bridle and reins feature prominently throughout the story. Bridled horses and unbridled horses feature prominently throughout the story. I found the bridle imagery, the symbolism, very interesting because a horse may not want to go in any direction, but the bridle and rein leads them that way. So maybe so too, the vengeance seeker doesn't want to go to whatever furthest point. Vengeance leads them. Vengeance is pulling them by the reins in that direction.
As long as there's no branding, then I think it's fine. Use branding for the comic itself rather than, the character.
Oh, bro. I thought you meant like marketing branding. I didn't mention anything.
I know. Yeah. Vengeance, you got some weird kinks. I mean, first you got a bridle and thing, and now you got some branding ire. Like, I just came for revenge. I didn't come for, my safe word is coconut. Just
what's this cauldron of coals for? Oh, you're gonna find out. You're the next one to find out.
Firewalking. I didn't sign up for this. What's going on? It's a heavy concept. It's a heavy book in general, even though it's a fast-paced book. Mm-hmm. But you're diving into a really fast story. And so it's sometimes hard to breathe with the characters. It's sometimes hard to figure out who you should root for when you're just thrown right into it.
I hope that at the end of the story, you're still like, oh, who was I? Who was I supposed to root for in this?
It felt like that because when I saw the bride, I'm just like, okay, she's trying to find her husband. And now she's indiscriminately killing people as it is as well. So it's just like Gomez and Morticia Adams, but, just a little more violent.
Yeah, I mean, I hope the point comes across that, in all these rhetorical questions of like what coin will he be paid in? What's in the end? The answer is nothing good. Like not and yeah, and Edmund. I mean, we can't give that away, but Edmund says it himself. Like we fucked it up. We could have done it, but we did it the wrong way.
Oops.
Like, yeah,
Can we get a do-over? Oh no, we killed everyone.
no,
Okay. Well, I guess we'll go to Waffle House instead. That's fine. Whatever the version of 18th century Waffle House is. Ye old tavern.
yeah, that's there too.
How do you hope Vengeance Must Die will contribute to a larger conversation surrounding the themes of justice, morality, and redemption in storytelling?
I think with the popular trope of an agent of vengeance, creators get a little lost in the joyful carte blanche that we give to this character. We see movies and all kinds of works that have this, and the hero is seeking righteous vengeance and is just steeped in blood. So that's very common. And then we see some stories where it's asking, what's the difference between vengeance and justice? And, it may be possible for vengeance to be just. Vengeance Must Die really is different. And I want it to flesh out the other side of that trope, less traveled, where a character may need to pause and so have to ask themselves, where will this end? What will be left of me? Where will this take me?
So, are you happy now that the comic is finished with what you've accomplished, not only from an art side, but from a writing side?
Yes, I'm very happy for the comic to be finished. I'm happy to get it out to people. There are going to be art pages of the work. I mean, potentially every single page of the book could be sold on the Zoop campaign. I would, of course, adore if that happened. And I think it's not only would it be great to sell all the pages, but also beauty is fleeting, art is beauty, and it would just be so nice to just, this is the Vengeance Must Die event. You're here at the fireworks show. When the fireworks end, you saw it all. I enjoyed doing it very much. I enjoy the story very much. I am very happy to have it now, get it to the hands of people, and then on to the next thing. It's over. That the fireworks show is done. I mean, if the people really want to see Vengeance Must Die too, the world keeps spinning, but the people are going to have to say it loud and clear that they want Vengeance Must Die too.
Actually, you just came up with the perfect sequel for that. Vengeance Must Die 2, The World Keeps Spinning.
TOO.
Ye old English strikes again.
You know?
Zoo campaigns are a little different from Kickstarter, only in the sense that it is more along the lines of they focus on comics specifically. That's the main differentiation between the two. When it comes to this particular campaign, what levels do you have that we can look forward to? I know you've mentioned the art side of things, which is great to see, but what else do we have for this particular campaign?
Vengeance Must Die actually will be a digital exclusive only campaign. So there's going to be the regular digital copy of Vengeance Must Die, 34 pages, and then there's going to be a digital plus. The digital plus version is going to have pinups by John Kissy and Pao Zhang. It's going to have the full script. It's going to have backup material, concept art, character design, and painting tests. It's just going to have a ton of material. It's going to have the secret origin of Vengeance Must Die, which I talked a little bit about on the show. I'm still compiling all of that. I'm imagining it'll be closer to 45 pages. So it'll be a much, much heavier book for just a few dollars more. Digital Plus is going to be a $10 PDF.
What are you looking forward to once this is completed? What's that next project that you want to accomplish?
I'm currently collaborating with some great artists. Jason Michalski is writing the project. John Kissy and Pao Zhang are also providing art for it. I'll be providing art for it. A little book. It's going to be a one shot, and we'll see what the reception is, called Werefox Detective. Very excited to start working on those pages very soon, actually. We're just figuring out it's another period piece, and we're figuring out the last little bits of design work before we all start drawing. Each of us is going to do a chapter, a 3-chapter book. So that'll very likely be the next thing that I draw. And then I have a story that I'd like to do that has to do with, it's an end of life story, but it has to do with a kind of immortal, kind of like a planetary immortal. Well, would definitely seem to a human like an immortal. So I have that all broken out in my mind. I need to tack things down so that they can become concrete in pencil. And that's going to be a black and white book. If you do a color book, you get to treat yourself with a little black and white book. So as a treat.
you're dusting off two different styles as you continuously working in comics. It's not that you're never doing a color comic and you just may not do gouache again.
Yes. And speaking of color comic, I have one of the add-ons on the book is this little zine, Blue Bastard, which is a full color zine. Very different than the coloring in Vengeance Must Die. It's just like flat retro kind of colors. That's going to be one of an add-on. There's going to be a commission level from me on the campaign. Under God is hard copy and digital copy will be one of the add-ons. It'll be a nice event. Like I think I like that idea of it's kind of like a fireworks show. Let's everyone come out. Then when that's done, Vengeance Must Die is over, and we move on. We move on with our lives. Hopefully, everyone will have a new story that they'll enjoy afterwards.
Well, Dan, I do hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Kurt. I really appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate you making space for me on the show. It's really great. So, and it's always a pleasure. You make the experience so fun and easy breezy. So, thank you very much.
It may look like I'm blushing, which I kind of am, but it's actually from the sun from the eclipse from yesterday. So I don't I tan very poorly. But no, thank you for the kind words. I do greatly appreciate it. Before I let you go, where can we find you? How can we support you? Of course, where is this amazing Zoop campaign and anything else you'd like to promote?
So the Zoop, it's zoop.gg/c/vengeance must die is the link to the campaign, which is live now. All the information is there. There's a really great video. Please go to the campaign page and hit that video. I love that video so much. You can also find me screaming about Vengeance Must Die, the Vengeance Must Die event on Blue Sky at danmembiela.bluesky.social. So I hope you enjoy the book. I really think that there's a lot there for people. Under God was a much more downbeat book about Christo-fascist state. Vengeance Must Die is much more like an action movie, not downbeat at all. I think there's very many funny parts in it. There's some horrific parts in it. I hope that people enjoy it. The real Vengeance Must Die is the lessons that we learn along the way. So hopefully there'll be some interesting food for thought at the end there.
As long as you're not making an omelet, breaking some eggs and some body parts along the way. So
I mean, you have to. I think that's how the expression goes, actually, Kurt.
Oh, I've been cooking all wrong this entire time. Jeez. Well, Dan, like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You can, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our website, tgtmedia.com or twogeekstalking.com. That's TWO. The website's going through a complete rebuild, so go to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/TGTmedia. The podcast is back at twogeekstalking.podbean.com or just search Two Geeks Talking wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.